Good evening. Welcome to Grand Blanc Township Board of Trustees meeting for Tuesday, March 21st. We could all rise for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Robertson, could you call the roll?
I would be happy to, Mr. Supervisor. Trustee Hugo?
Here.
Trustee Fike?
Yes, here.
Trustee Raridan?
Here.
Trustee White is absent. Treasurer Kilmer?
Here.
Myself, of course, I'm here. Supervisor Bennett?
Yes, present.
6 members present, a quorum.
Thank you. Before we get to approving the agenda, I just want to take a moment and Grand Blanc High School is playing this evening.
Hey.
And they're going to be wearing these shirts in the student section tonight, but playing for the quarterfinals, and they're up against, who is it? They're up against Rochester Adams.
Yes, Goodrich
Playing
played Ferndale.
Lake Orion and Goodrich is playing this evening as well, so we wish them well in their tournament play this evening. With that, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the agenda. Motion by Trustee Fike, support by Trustee Hugo.
Motion by Fike, supported by Hugo for the agenda.
Hold on a minute.
Mr. Supervisor,
Yes.
before you guys approve the agenda, I would just ask that the board would consider removing agenda item under new business 7I, resolution 20. I'd like to pull that from the agenda for consideration this evening. We need a little bit more time putting that together.
Okay. Mr. Fike, you good with that?
I'm good with that.
As amended.
Okay.
Okay.
Both approved.
Okay. Trustee Raridan?
Yes.
Trustee Hugo?
Yes.
Trustee Fike?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer?
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett?
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Okay, at this time, we'll entertain anybody who would like to make public comment. We have public comment forms over here, but in the event that maybe you neglected to fill one out, if you want to fill one out now and bring it up, we'll entertain anyone to speak. Looks like we have Miss Delore that would like to speak. Good evening. What's that?
That's okay, that's plenty. Thank you.
So April Delore, Grand Blanc Township. I was just coming in to follow up with what was going on with the Dort Highway lights over by the Walmart that you guys said that there was a survey done on. I was just following up to see what the conclusion was, and if you guys come up with any sort of a conclusion for like a turn lane or something over by my neighborhood where we say that the accidents are always so. I don't know if you guys talked about it anymore, or if that came to fruition about.
Well, under one of our reports later on, we'll talk a little bit about that.
Okay, all right. And I was wondering about the Grand Blanc, the trails that you guys said you were going to put in, or didn't you say you were putting in some sort of a walking trail or parks or something over here by the old police station? You would turn to like a township hall or something, or a community center?
What's your concern with it?
No, I was wondering if that's what you guys were doing, like if you guys started doing the beautification process.
We're just in the beginning stages of planning for some of
Okay.
these things.
Because you said you're doing a beautification thing, and you're going to involve maybe the public or
Right.
something to do that,
We'll
yeah.
bring that up too.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks. We don't mean to be disrespectful. We just, when we have public comment, we try not to make it a back and forth kind of thing. We'll take the concerns and questions, and then sometimes we have the answers during the board meeting. Other times we'll get with you privately. Otherwise, it changes our whole agenda for the meeting if we start entertaining all the questions and what have you. But we appreciate them. But we'll make sure we address your concerns during our meeting. Okay. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board, and I'll seek approval for the consent agenda. Ms. Hugo makes the motion, supported by Dr. Raridan.
Supported by Raridan for the consent agenda. Trustee Fike?
Yes.
Trustee Hugo?
Yes.
Trustee Raridan?
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett?
Yes,
6-0, motion passes.
thank you. Under old business, with regard to our strategic plan update, we're going to discuss our enhanced code enforcement this evening. We have Mr. Sears with us, our DPW director, our esteemed DPW.
Evening, everyone. Thank you. So I just want to give you a brief update on where we're at with code enforcement. Obviously, as part of the board's strategic plan is to adapt an enhanced code enforcement program to try and clean up some of the blighted properties, maybe be a little bit more proactive out in the community. Kind of going through the plan a little bit. To date, some of our accomplishments, we've increased our code enforcement staff from 2 officers to 3. That's 1 full-time and 2 part-time. In 2019, we hired 2 retired City of Flint police officers who work extremely well together in tackling some of our most harsh cases around the township. They also work really well with our our existing code enforcement officer, Amy Wilkinson. She's our full-time employee, so she handles some clerical work in the office, and then she also goes out and she mostly takes care of our signs that aren't supposed to be out there. We've worked with planning and zoning to review and modify some of our ordinances. Probably the most prominent one that's helped us the most is the RV ordinance. As you recall, we modified that one so that people could park their RVs at their homes during camping season, basically spring, summer, and fall. That has freed up a ton of time for our code enforcement officers to be able to go out and take care of some of the biggest problem properties where there's a lot of blight, some that we've been trying to get cleaned up for a very long time, and we've never quite been successful. So our people have been very good about that. We've gotten one over here on Chapin. That was a big problem for several years, and the township ended up going to court. We got a judgment, and we were able to get that property cleaned up. So we're making very good progress, and there's several other properties like that. We're even working on a home right now that unfortunately is full of stuff, debris. It's a hoarding situation. Our code enforcement officers were there for another situation, found out there was an even bigger problem in the home, and they have been in the process of adjudicating that case. And we just got a judgment a couple weeks ago on that. So we're working through that process, trying to work with that homeowner and help them more than be a burden on them. So, and that's always our biggest goal. Our officers have been very good about resolving cases without sending letters and writing tickets, just by talking to homeowners. Taking the approach of educating people, knocking on the door and having a conversation with them actually works a lot better than people would think, because the majority of people don't even know they're violating an ordinance, and they're very pleasant and they just take care of it. Obviously, we're still working through the notice period and trying to educate people on what that's like. A lot of people don't understand that whenever we go to a code enforcement, it takes 20 days of notices just to get to the point where we can write them a ticket and take them to court. And then just to go to court, we're at the mercy of them to schedule the case. That can sometimes take months. So all the meanwhile, while we're writing notices, we're communicating with people and trying to help them out the best we can to get something resolved before we get to the judge. Because we don't really want it to get to the judge. We don't want that burden of cleaning up a property on us, because then we have to pay for it. We have to put it on the taxes and hope those taxes get paid. So, and we don't want anybody to ever lose their house over this either. And, pay taxes, if it's a big bill, there's a potential for that. So our officers work very hard to try and prevent that the best they can. Things we have not completed that we're still yet to work on, and hopefully we'll get done this year. An easier online complaint system, something that's easier for people to find. Right now, we have an online form that you can fill out, you can submit it, but it's not the easiest thing to find. It may not be the easiest thing for people to use. Obviously, we have a population in our township that doesn't want to use our website. They don't want to use a computer. So hopefully we can find a system, an anonymous system that's easier for people to access. And, they can get those complaints to us so that we can get them resolved quickly. Also, what I'd like to do is come up with a list of resources from the community programs, whatever, who can help some of these people who truly do need help cleaning up their properties, who don't have the ability, who don't have the money. Hopefully we can find some resources out there that we can make available to them. and make things a little bit easier. Because it's not easy to tell somebody that, they have $8,000 worth of cleanup to do on their property when they, some people just never had the intentions of the junk piling up over the years, but, and now all of a sudden they have to get rid of it all, which is sometimes not easy. So hopefully with a little empathy, we're making some progress. I certainly think we have. And I know our code enforcement officers are next to none. They're a great group of people that they just work really well together. They work well with all the township staff, with the police department, with Attorney Laddie, and I think they're definitely making some progress. We can answer any questions you might have.
One observation, Mr. Sears, that, the code enforcement is caught in the middle because, we get phone calls and emails that they're not doing enough, that rusty trailer, I just don't want to look at it anymore. And the problem is we don't have a code or ordinance against rust on trailers parked, and we do our best to clean up, messes that are maybe beside the trailer. And then on the other hand, we get the complaint that you guys are overreaching. I should be able to do what I want with my property. So there, it's not a win-win. It's kind of a lose-lose. We're never doing enough, and we're always overreaching. So it's a very difficult and fine line to walk by our code enforcement officers and by staff here, board members that have to take the complaints. But, I still think that, some communities have lakes that people move to be close to. Some people move because of mountains, desert, whatever. I think people move to Grand Blanc Township because we have high standards. And if we want to relax those, then those standards go away. But people make me eat those words too when they don't feel we're going far enough. I thought you said we had standards. Well, we do, but the community kind of helps us establish where that line is. But I think our code enforcement people are doing a fabulous job.
Absolutely.
Mr. Fike?
Jeff, remember when we were talking about code enforcement months ago, and there were specific time of the year when you could have the trailer out there in your driveway, or, you had to have it moved by, a certain time? When is that?
Boy, I wish I had those dates right off the top of my head.
April 1st to November 1st.
There you go.
There you go. So April 1st, they got to move, and you guys will be out there saying,
Putting your trailer in the driveway?
November 1st, they can be.
They can be
They
there.
can be in the property, correct.
Gotcha.
It's over between November 1st and April 1st that they cannot be in the front setback of the property.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
I like the idea of having some resources too for helping people, whether it's helping them, whether it's Boy Scouts or whoever it is that want to come out and volunteer to help with somebody's yard, that sort of thing.
And the state and the county have resources too. It's just helping people find them.
Right.
That's the difficult part sometimes.
And I'd like the idea of an app maybe to report some of that stuff, even, if it could be linked to the county for potholes, because we get lots of calls for potholes and stuff like that. And when we tell people it's a county issue, they think we're just brushing them off and finding somebody else to blame. In reality, it is the county's responsibility. But right now, the app they're using is called Facebook.
And I wish they'd just call our office sometimes.
Right, rather than posting it for everybody. Any thoughts, concerns from board members? Mr. Lehman?
Awesome.
Okay, thank you. Okay, under new business, the board will consider a resolution to approve the revised 2023 fee schedule, changing roofing permit fees from being based on the project value to a $125 flat fee per permit. And that's Mr. Sears again.
Might as well just camp out here for a bit. So I've been talking to our building official. He brought this up to me a while back about changing on our fee schedule the amount we charge for roofing permits. Right now, it's based on the value of the project. So whenever somebody turns in a permit, they have to put on how much it's going to cost to put the new roof on. And obviously, if you've put a roof on lately, the prices can vary based on contractors, the size of your roof, so on and so forth. They range anywhere from $100 to $500, maybe even beyond that. And the issue is, no matter what the amount, the value is of that roof, our review and inspection are the same for every single roof. So what we feel like is happening, because we've been pursuing people lately who do not get permits, and there's a lot of them. We find a lot of roofs that have never been reported to the township, and we feel that maybe that sliding permit scale, the fee scale is it's not working for us anymore. So our building official, Ted, has recommended that we change that to a set permit fee of $125 that covers our expenses for our plan review and for our inspection, so that, the township is covered on all of our operations, but yet maybe people won't think it's such a burden to come get a permit, and, we can capture more of that, because it's really to their value in the end to come and tell us, and so that we don't catch them in the first place. But I agree with the building official. I think we should change it. I think there's probably more of these permit fees that we can change in the future. We just haven't gotten that far yet, so.
Dr. Reardon?
So what's the lowest that we charge?
It'd just be a $125 flat fee.
No,
Currently.
Currently.
Currently, he said they range from $100 to $500. That he has seen.
Okay, so this would,
Mike?
Oh, go ahead, Dave.
so that means 125 for all regardless of the,
Correct. It's just a flat fee, and it's an adequate fee that covers our plan review, our clerical staff, and our inspection.
does the, give me an example of a $500 fee.
It could
What size house?
It could be a 5,000 square foot house in Pine Hollow or something that has a ton of pitches and, a very high pitched roof.
And
or
how much time,
valleys and-
how much time do we spend on that house versus
1,500 square foot.
1,500, right?
I don't think much at all. I don't think there's much of a difference at all. I mean, our building inspectors go out, they do a visual inspection, make sure the ice and water shield is on there at first, and then they go out and inspect the final shingles, and regardless of the size, I think they spend about the same time on it. The same effort, the same amount of inspections, the same amount of plan review time.
One of our
According
board,
to our building official, he's our expert, so that's.
What I don't want is I don't want the people that have a 1,500 square foot house subsidizing people that have a 5,000 square foot house.
Absolutely, 100%, I agree. And Ted did not believe that was the case at all.
Mr. Kilmer?
Do we do plan reviews on these or is it just?
It's just a permit review. We review the permit form, the contractor, the location, everything like
They
that.
don't have to submit drawings or anything?
They don't submit drawings for roofing, no. They do have to submit materials that they're gonna be using, so on and so forth.
One of the things that I know that is common to say is that, don't put ordinances out there that you can't enforce. And the thing is that, number one, people aren't getting the permits is what we're finding. But number two, even if I told you that my roof only cost $5,000 to put on, how do you know if that's the case versus $35,000? We don't have any ability to subpoena their records for their roofing, costs. So, by having the sliding scale, I can just tell you I've got a $5,000 roof, and guess what? My fee's down at the lowest level. But I think, the best thing is to have a flat, if our building people are telling us, hey, it doesn't take me any more time to review a plan for a 5,000 square foot house versus, this isn't going to apply to commercial buildings, obviously.
Right. Well, that type of thing doesn't work for regular plan reviews for a building, say, where we might have multiple iterations for plans. We're spending more time on a commercial building reviewing that. That goes by value for a reason, because if it's a gigantic commercial building, it takes up a lot more time.
So if Walmart comes in and they said, we're gonna put a new roof on, what's their fee?
I'll give you an example. We just did a permit at General Motors. It wasn't a roof permit, but on the sliding scale, the fees were almost $28,000 for a permit fee. But it takes such a tremendous amount of inspections and review. you know, it's definitely worth having that sliding scale so we can make up the amount of money.
Okay, so part two of this, this is just for residential then? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, this is a residential fee. Yeah.
Yeah, I think everybody would probably agree with Dr. Reardon that we don't want to have anybody subsidizing
absolutely.
other people's houses, but if they're telling us that it's, you know, something that pretty much uses the same amount of work. The other thing is if it gets compliance too, then that's part of it. Mr. Fike?
So just to clarify for my own brain, for everybody that puts a roof on in Grand Blanc Township, even if their brother-in-law does it, they have to have a permit.
That is correct. Everybody.
They gotta call, it's their responsibility to call the
It's
township.
the homeowner's responsibility.
Yeah.
Even if they hire a contractor, it's the homeowner's ultimate responsibility to pull a permit.
So where this comes in is, I've been in Mr. Limita's office when we get the phone call from somebody asking us why we didn't make sure that they had a permit for doing XYZ work at this house that I just bought. I just bought this house and this was put in incorrectly. This should have had a permit on it and never been put in this way. And we're telling the person, hey, you know what? We insist that everybody get a permit, but people do stuff without coming and telling us, and it gets put in wrong, gets installed incorrectly, and now they want to blame the township for, hey, my roof is leaking. Well, we never went out there, we never got a permit to do it, we never even knew it was done, you know? We can't police every neighborhood 24/7, and I mean, we get roofers going out on the weekend doing it. You know, we've got people doing work that they don't come and tell us. So we get it from the other side too, of people that think that, you know, we warranty houses, but we don't. I mean, this is one safeguard, but it's kind of, hey, we depend on people's honesty here a little bit too. Mr. Kilmer?
My mother-in-law, God rest her soul, she passed away this last year, but she had her house roofed.
Right.
And she asked me for some help in getting contractors, and unfortunately, I was gonna be out of town, but I left her a list of things to ask for
Right.
with the contractor. Is he licensed, you know, et cetera. So I come back and this gentleman is just finishing up the roof. And so I went in and I asked my mother-in-law, I said, did you get the stuff that I asked for? That I told you should get? She says, oh, yeah, yeah. This guy gave her his driver's license, his Blue Cross card, and what else was there? But
State license.
yeah, I mean, it was totally ridiculous. Obviously, it was not a permitted.
Right. Right.
What's the penalty for not being permitted?
$500 fine, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe it is a $500 fine. And we do find them, and we have issued those fines. Absolutely.
Okay. Mr. Limita?
No, the point being is that we have a lot of these guys out that we're trying to make it as easy as possible. Can they do this online now for roofing permits? So online roofing permits, go online, apply for it, pay the $125, get the permit. The reason we want to do that is that it does get inspected, it protects the homeowner from shoddy workmanship, make sure that we get it right. If we fine them $100 and make a stop work order because they didn't get a permit, and then they still have to come in and get the permit, we just double the cost of doing it. A lot of these contractors the permit is a pass-through fee. We're gonna do this, we're gonna put a roof on your house for $8,000, and included in that $8,000 is a permit. Well, make sure they have the permit, right? So make sure that inspection gets out there. But you'd be surprised how many of these roofing companies come through. We're trying to make it as easy as possible to comply, right? And that's the whole thing, again, voluntary compliance. But if we stop out there, if our code enforcement guys stop out and you don't have a permit to show us and you're working on the roof, well, you're gonna get a stop work order, which means the guys who are getting paid, stop work right now, leave the site, no matter where they're at in it, stop it, get off. You're gonna drive down here then, get your permit, drive back out there, then you can resume work. And it's gonna cost you twice as much because you're paying a $100 fine for doing it. We can, I mean, if that isn't enough of a deterrent, we can make it a stop work fine as well. If we have to come out there and do a stop work order on you, then that's gonna be $50. I mean, we can keep tweaking this thing till we make sure that we're doing the right thing to protect people. But if you're having somebody work on your house, even if you're doing it yourself, if you're not a roofer, but you're doing a do-it-yourself project, why not have our inspectors go out there and just tell you that you did it right, assure you that you did it right? It's going to protect you in the long run.
Are we finding, in this case, do we find the homeowner or the business?
It's ultimately the homeowner's responsibility to have a permit. But if they've hired somebody to do the roof and we stop them, obviously the contractor is the one who runs down and pulls the permit. Homeowners can pull the permit also, I mean, to make sure that there's one. But if you're paying a contractor and they can go online and get it, they just need to tell people, like, I mean, it couldn't be any easier to get it. You don't even have to come down here. Do it online and get the permit.
And it's the same for a lot of other things too. I mean, whether it's putting up a privacy fence and we find out after they put it up that there was no permit, well, guess what? There's a penalty for not having come here first.
So, okay, and, I'm gonna end up supporting this, but Dennis, if I hire a contractor and the contractor doesn't pull the permit, then we're going to go after the homeowner when really it should be the contractor's responsibility once he assumes that job, correct?
It should be, but again, the homeowner needs to insist upon, just like you heard Treasurer Kilmer, that you're licensed, insured, bonded, that you do have the permit, and they guarantee that they do all those things as a homeowner. You need to make sure that that's what they've told you, but they should have the permit to display. And again, so many of these go through every single year that never pull a permit and the job gets done, because we're not driving around looking at every roofing project, running somebody over there. That'd be a full-time job.
Right, so I'm thinking of like a 90-year-old person that is paying going to pay to have the roof done, and they're thinking this person, they're going to get the permits, they're going to do everything. And is there a way that we could amend the ordinance to put the responsibility on the contractor?
I mean, it's the homeowner's responsibility to hire somebody that's on any of these projects, not just a roofing permit, but any of these projects, unless you're a do-it-yourself, or you can do it yourself, but it's the homeowner's responsibility to make sure it's permitted. If you're swinging a hammer in Grand Blanc Township, you probably need a permit. You should probably reach out to the township and find out. We put most of this stuff online now. We're putting more and more online so that we can make it as easy as possible. But quite frankly, if they came and did it over a weekend and we drive by on Monday and say, wow, that looks like a new roof, we're not, like, there's no enforcement, Dr. Raridan. We're not knocking on their door saying, hey, is that a new roof? By the way, did you have a permit? Because we didn't see one. It's only if we see somebody actively working, we happen to be there, or we got a complaint or something, that's what's going to trigger this thing. But that's why we want to make it as easy as possible to comply, so that we don't have to have these enforcement actions. It's that it'd be silly not to spend the $125 and jump online and pull the permit, because if we happen to stop and you don't have a permit, then it's going to cost you twice as much, and you're going to have a stop work order where you're paying guys to wait for you to come back from the township.
And I understand that. I guess my point is that I don't know. I think most homeowners, when they hire somebody, think that they're going to probably get the permits, and I think the onus should be on the company that's being hired rather than the homeowner.
But it's,
To me, that makes the most sense.
but from a homeowner's perspective, how do we enforce that? Like, don't have something that you can enforce. What am I going to do to a out-of-state contractor or out-of-town contractor who came in and did it and didn't pull the permit, and then these people a year from now, because we will never know.
Well,
But until there's a problem, all of a sudden their roof has got an ice dam and it's leaking and it's destroyed their house, and they come and they're saying, well, can you help us? That's when we find out and we say that was an unpermitted project. I mean, we don't have an enforcement action, and we don't have an enforcement action on this person. They do, because they signed a contract with this person who said, I'm licensed, I'm bonded, insured, and I pull permits.
And I don't want to be the dead horse here, but if the person is, same scenario you mentioned, and let's say they did get the permit. Let's say we went out and we checked it and said, yeah, that looks good, and 6 months later, there's an issue. That doesn't fall on Grand Blanc Township. That still falls, they're still gonna have to chase that person down.
Right.
Correct, but can Grand Blanc Township be named in litigation because we had a building inspector who went out there and signed off on something and we said, yes, it was done correctly? Would that be within our governmental immunity? While we have governmental immunity, we still are liable if we've gone out and signed on something that was not to code. We have some culpability in that litigation.
Mr. Kilmer?
In the southern states, particularly where they have hurricanes, major storms, whatever, they have huge problems with out-of-town contractors coming in. They come in, they do the job, they're gone. And like I say, it's a major, major issue with it down there. And the problem is that if you hire somebody, or if somebody does your roof, if they do it incorrectly, the insurance company's only gonna pay for it once.
Right.
They're not gonna pay for it twice.
We get the out-of-town groups coming in here when there's a hailstorm. They'll go through whole neighborhoods and actually put signs up and everything else. But, the onus being on the homeowner, I mean, anybody who has work done to their home should ask the question, are you going to pull the permits? Are you bonded? Are you insured? I mean, there's a whole list of things you should ask them for. But, we actually have had people come in here and say that their contractor told them that they would pull the permit and they don't. Or they've told them, you don't need to get the permit. We'll be fine doing it without a permit. And then, in the middle of the job, we find out, hey, they're doing this job over there. And so, I mean, I think just every homeowner needs to know. I mean, I think most people know that when they put in a hot water heater, hey, the first question is, do I need to get a permit for that? And most people are probably thinking, I can do that I'll do that myself, or I'm not going to get a permit, and then when there's a problem later and the township's in there, the inspector for looking at something else, they're like, we never looked at that furnace that was put in there, and I don't see any tag on it. We have people that buy houses that call us up, hey, we don't see a tag on the furnace in here. Well, the last furnace we showed was when the place was built. Right. So, I mean, it's something that homeowners should just know that, when you have something done, you might want to have a permit, because the next person that buys your house may say, hey, you know what? This thing was never permitted in the first place to be installed. Right. So. And we've gotten those phone calls here, Dennis and I. People mad at us because it wasn't permitted work. It's like,
Is the motion in order, Mr. Supervisor?
it is.
And I will make
You
that
wanna go on
motion.
to another topic?
Motion by Robertson, supported by Hugo.
Go, yes. Well,
All
thank you,
right.
Clerk Robertson.
Okay, trustee Raridan,
Yes.
trustee Fike,
Yes.
trustee Hugo,
Yes.
myself, yes, treasurer Kilmer,
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett,
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Item B, the board will consider a motion to approve the purchase of a new mechanic service truck chassis from Tri-County Trucks for $71,958.22, and service body and equipment from Knapheide Truck Equipment for $113,066 for a project total of $185,024.22, and authorize the township superintendent to execute all related contracts and documents. Mr. Sears?
So as everyone knows, over the past few years, the township has taken on the fire department and Parks and Recreation. And with that has come with a whole slew of equipment that has to be maintained. We happen to have on staff 2 very talented mechanics here that previously only maintained DPW equipment and police department equipment. They are now helping out with Parks and Rec equipment and fire station apparatuses on a regular occasion. And they've become a much busier team than what perhaps we used to be, just doing oil changes and tire rotations and stuff like that. They're a lot more involved now. The current service truck that we have was purchased and built in 2008. So it's quite old. We've not replaced it in our normal 10 to 15 year replacement cycle because it's still a very good truck. It still serves us well. It's just not equipped anymore for us to be able to go out to the park to repair a tractor, to repair a lawnmower, for us to be able to go down to Fire Station 2 and repair a fire apparatus or a pump or something, or even some of our equipment in the DPW that does not fit in the barn, where it might be easier to repair it out in the field or in a parking lot. So what we're proposing to do is purchase a new service truck for our two mechanics. We'd like to keep the old service truck because we do have two mechanics. We do have to separate occasion. Right now, we work out of that service truck in an old DPW pickup truck. So one of them has to collect all of his tools, put them in the pickup truck and head out to a job site, hope that he has everything, not knowing exactly what he's going to encounter. The truck that we would like to build is larger. It's equipped with a welder and air compressor. Also, we'd be equipped with a crane that can lift lawnmowers. It can lift, even transmissions, engines if we need to, because they do get into some of that stuff on occasion if it's an emergency and we can't get something into the shop quick enough. It's also going to be large enough to hold all the tools that they're going to need on a job site, especially when we're talking about fire apparatuses and specialty equipment like our sewer vac truck or our dump trucks, or even responding to an accident involving a police cruiser. We'll be able to do a lot more of that work out in the field and hopefully not delay repairs as much. So the truck we'd like to obviously purchase from Napa Truck Equipment and Tri-County Trucks. They're both using the My Deal state bid. So all of these expenses have already been bid out by the state of Michigan. And our mechanic's been working with Napa High to design the truck, and they've come to a design that they really like. So we're looking for the board's support tonight.
I just have to say, I've spent some time with Nick, one of our head mechanic, and those guys save us so much money. It's unbelievable. They're not parts replacers. They actually fix things. And, if it's one of the plow trucks or one of the DPW trucks, actually the oil pan had a crack in it. And, they could either lift the motor out to get to the oil pan or, they can cut it and take it off and replace it. And they replace the oil pan. They do just everything. I mean, they figured out how to work on our fire trucks rather than us sending them into, a specialty company that can only fix them. And, I mean, the money they save us is incredible.
They're amazing. I mean, they've resorted to doing transmissions now because, we would send a police car in for a transmission and it could sit at a transmission shop for 6 months.
Yeah.
Because they're backed up, they can't get parts. So they're buying transmissions and replace them and they can do it in a few hours. So they're very talented.
Very frugal, too.
They are. I will do a plug. They are overburdened. There's going to be a time where we're going to need another mechanic.
Absolutely.
Just happens to be right now, we don't have the facilities for it. Once the new DPW building is built and we move out of our existing barn, they'll have a much bigger space and be able to accommodate another employee that they sorely need right now. They just don't have space to put anyone else right now.
Clerk Robertson?
Are we holding on to the old truck or are we selling that?
We are going to hold on to it.
Okay. All right.
Any other thoughts from anyone? Concerns?
I make a motion.
Okay, motion by,
Motion by Fike,
support by Ms. Hugo.
support by Hugo. Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Okay, item C, the board will consider a motion to purchase a new sanitary sewer CC, or closed caption TV truck from Bell Equipment for $274,881.46. Declare the 2014 Chevy IBAK closed caption TV truck surplus equipment. Authorize the township superintendent to execute all related contracts and documents. So I assume, Mr. Sears, that by declaring this surplus equipment, we would sell it on.
Correct, we will sell it. As it states in the board packet, our current truck was built in 2014. We received it either in late 2014, early 2015, and put it into service. It's not quite 10 years old, but the technology in it is quite outdated for what we do, for the amount of sewer cleaning and televising that we do right now. We're finding that we have a lot of downtime with this truck, with this camera equipment. We have to send it down quite often for repairs. on these trucks, they have a little tractor on them that actually drives the camera through the sewer lines. That has been failing on us over the years. And we want to be more efficient and more effective out in the field. We have a top-notch asset management program for our sewer truck. My own employees will tell you they get far less overtime now with sewer backups and everything than what they used to get because we have such a rigorous cleaning and televising program. We fix problems before they become real big problems. So this equipment is invaluable to us.
Mr. Sears, how often would a sewer get televised? Once every how many years would?
We try to get everything televised once every 5 years in the township. We're on a little bit more of an advanced schedule right now. Last year, we got a lot more done than what we have the past few years, and we hope to keep that up. We recently took delivery of our new Vector truck, which the board approved last year. So between that piece of equipment and this piece of equipment, which we should receive, I believe sometime late summer, early fall, we'll be able to stay on that trajectory and, keep our sewer system in very good condition.
Does that help us detect I&I issues?
It does. That's actually one of the sole reasons what we're looking for. What we do is when we send that camera down through there, all of our technicians are trained on surveying and coding the sewer system. So what they do is they put a risk of failure on it. They mark any kind of cracks or leaks, and then we send that data over to our contractor. They used to be called Liquiforce. They're now Granite Inliner. They review the videos and give us their suggested repairs. So they'll send us a list of liners that they think we should put in. Greg, my assistant director, reviews all the videos and their suggested repairs, and then he approves them. Sometimes he removes some if they're not as bad. Sometimes he'll add some. And then we do $300,000 in sewer lining every year in order to keep it top notch.
Can you remind everyone what I&I is and why it's important to us?
I&I, inflow and infiltration. Basically, that's the surface water, the groundwater, rainwater that infiltrates our sewer system. That is extremely important to us because during a heavy flooding event, it backs up our sewer system.
Understood.
Also, in the future, it's going to start costing us money at the wastewater treatment plant because Genesee County becomes overburdened with treating stormwater that otherwise doesn't necessarily need to be treated. All wastewater treatment plants are being scrutinized throughout the state right now on the amount of I&I and their outfalls and their permits. And Genesee County is not alone on that. So they're having to be more strict on their.
And we're metered, so it isn't like they don't
Right.
know how much is coming from Grand Blanc Township. And
know exactly
we
how
will
much.
start paying for that
Right.
shortly. Mr. Kilmer and then Mr. Roberts.
Question, I noticed when we bought other trucks and stuff, often the time frame is long to get this thing because they have to build it and whatever. Is the same thing true on this?
This one may come a little bit quicker because some of, like the chassis and some of the equipment is in stock. So they may build it a little bit quicker. Our Vector truck took a year to get. The truck that you just approved for the new mechanics, or the new mechanics truck, is only going to take a couple months because they have the chassis in stock. That's our biggest problem right now is getting the truck chassis. I think this one's going to be more readily available because it's basically a box truck that they purchase and they build it out, basically. They put their equipment in it. But even pickup trucks right now, we're a year out on pickup trucks.
Really?
I'm hoping that I can buy one here soon. Our dealer that we normally go through using the Oakland County bidding system says he might have some in stock. So hopefully we'll be able to get a pickup truck here pretty soon. But yeah, it's a problem. Hopefully this one comes a little bit quicker though.
Fire trucks are taking considerably longer.
Correct.
Yep,
Mr. Roberts.
thank you. This figure, the 274,881, is that the total price for the truck and the equipment you've described, or are those separate expenditures?
That is the total price. The total purchase comes from Bell Equipment. So they purchase the chassis and they build everything on it and we just pay them. That's different from Napa High because Napa High does not purchase any chassis. We have to purchase.
Thank you very much, Mr. Supervisor. Thank you very much.
For Mr. Limita, this is over $400,000 for a couple of trucks. Is this in the budget?
It is, if you take a look at the CIP documentation that we have for the entire township, but especially for the DPW, it's critical because just the sheer amount of equipment that we have and the capital expenditures That's also factored in. It's why our rates are so important to us, why we do the rate studies, why we continue to look at ready to serve charge and rates so that we have the ability to replace these on a schedule. And that thing has been refined, especially more in the 8 years that Mr. Sears has been a part of our township. He's done an excellent job on really making sure that our capital projects plan is really strong and that we have the funds, that we're charging the right rates, not overcharging, that those capital fees that we put go into capital to exactly this so that we can purchase these in a timely fashion.
Thank you.
So you look at the sinkhole that occurred down in, where was it, Sterling Heights or Warren?
Macomb County, the
Macomb County.
gigantic one, yeah.
Yeah. So televising your sewers is important.
Right. And I don't want anybody to think that that's going to happen here. We don't have any sewers quite that large that can cause quite that sinkhole that can swallow a house.
Just because it's below ground doesn't mean we
Yeah.
don't pay attention to it.
I'm very proud of the program that we have, and our technicians are absolutely amazing at it. They know what they're doing, they take pride in it also. So, and it's actually, believe it or not, one of the maintenance items that some of them really enjoy doing. I never got that when I was a technician, but they like it, so.
The number does look large, but believe me, the number's even larger if we don't.
Absolutely.
Scott, if I could?
Yes.
Just a quick question. How, would you venture an opinion on how the county does for the areas that are in their jurisdiction? Are they on the INI? Are they as on top of things as we are on ours?
Well, realizing that the county has a much larger sewer system than what we do. You know, they have a lot of wholesale customers that they take care of. By far, most of their communities are wholesale, townships, rather. And they hire contractors to do a lot of televising. I don't want to, I think we do a better job personally, but I think, honestly, we're one of the best municipalities in the state taking care of our sewer system.
Very good. Thank you very
I'd put it up
much.
against anyone.
We're one of the few townships in Genesee County that actually have our own DPW and maintain our own water and sewer.
That is true.
Dr. Reardon?
What do we think we're gonna get out of the one we're selling?
I'm not entirely sure because I've never sold one of these before, but we've been getting a lot of money for equipment. I'm hoping we can get upwards of $50,000 for it.
I'd make a motion that we
Okay,
do this.
all right. Support by Ms. Hugo.
Motion by Raritan, supported by Hugo. Trustee Raritan.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sears. Item D, the board will consider a motion to approve the renewal of annual licensing for Office 365 through CDW Government LLC for $42,869.65 and approve the township superintendent to execute any and all related contracts and agreements. Good evening, Mr. Lucevelt.
Good evening. So this is our yearly expense for Office 365, which is our email system. But it also encompasses things like Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, things like that nature, those applications. It also has our OneDrive, which is what we use to store documents in the cloud and share things to our residents. And on top of that, it's also our two-factor authentication for our email. So this is an annual.
So is this,
Okay.
Mr. Kilmer?
is this basically a software fee?
It's a fee to host our email in the cloud, and also software that's involved in it. There are multiple softwares that are involved in it as well.
So what this replaces is probably in the past would be a large server that would be on site that would have, we'd have to load with a bunch of software and hope that nothing ever happens, that piece of equipment.
Yes, and if the server here ever went down, or we had an internet outage or things like that, we would lose access to email.
So now it's all in the cloud, and the software is in the cloud, a lot of it, and so. Dr.
Make a
Reardon?
motion that we do.
Okay, Dr. Reardon makes a motion, supported by Mr. Fike.
Motion by Raritan, supported by Fike. Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee Raritan. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you.
I have to say too, just my comment is that, we've got a great IT department, and I know a lot of other townships don't have the size to be able to have their own IT department, but I'm glad that we've invested, because I hear horror stories, many other municipalities that we're not having to deal with, so thank you for your work. Item E, the board will consider a motion to approve a development agreement between Swauza LLC and Grand Blanc Township for the purposes of having Rowe Engineering perform the design engineering for the road and water sewer infrastructure with a shared cost agreement. Mr. Lemata?
So this is a development agreement that would be between Grand Blanc Township and the developers of the Technology Village project. What this will accomplish is to use Rowe Engineering, the township's engineers, to do the design engineering for both our water and sewer project, as well as the road project that'll be required for that development. The vast majority of the funds required to do this are going to be from the developer, close to $700,000. Our share is going to be a little over $200,000. In the end, what happens is the township signs the contract with Rowe Engineering to perform these services, and we control the project. The invoices come to us, we pay them. But in order to do that, we have a development agreement, and they're required to give us a cash bond in the full amount of the cost of the engineering, so that we don't okay moving forward on the project until we already have the developer's money here in the form of a cash bond, so that we know that the project is going to be completed, and the township will not be worried about collecting on any of the funds that will cost us to perform the engineering.
Okay, any questions? Ms. Hugo?
I was going to make a motion.
You're going to make the motion? Okay.
Motion by Hugo,
Is there support? And then we'll get to discussion. Support by Dr. Reardon.
support by Raritan.
Question by Mr. Fike.
When do you expect there to be actual work over there?
If the board approves moving forward, you can see that it's already been signed by the developer. We would order this project to start immediately, so I would imagine that as long as they get the check to us, so that we have the cash bond in hand, Rowe will start immediately, and that's the first phase of it, is to actually design where the road and the water and sewer project are going to go. As soon as they're done with the design engineering, then we will be available to bid out our project, as the developer will be available to bid or do whatever they're going to do on theirs. This just gets us through that design engineering phase. It's really a developer's timeline. The fastest they want to get moving is how quick it'll go, but all the engineering will be in place and ready to go, depending on how quick they bid the project, hire a contractor, and get going.
Okay.
Really, the projects will go simultaneously. We'll be doing the water and sewer project at the same time that they're putting the road in.
Any questions, concerns?
Roll call, if I may.
Yes.
Trustee Raritan.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Gilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you. And item F, the board will consider options to complete the proposed fit court for Bicentennial Park and authorize the Parks and Recreation Department to move forward with accepting the grant and begin sourcing funding for the donor wall. Ms. Lemata?
Hi, good evening.
Hello.
So you guys, we had some questions last week, so I talked to the Fit Court Partnership Development Manager, and we discussed some of those. You had a question about drainage. Their slab, the concrete slab, is built on a slope, so that is not an issue. We talked a little bit about injuries. They have had 0 injuries reported to them at the National Fit Court with the use of their equipment. But also they are covered under, they've always been covered under all the insurance policies. So all the ones, or all of the, municipalities or whoever it is that has these fit courts, they haven't had to go out and get additional insurance to have the fit court. And then also on the wall itself, there is like a graphic explaining how to safely use it. And then also in the app, that we talked about, they have another safety warning kind of explaining exactly how to use the equipment safely. And then the other question we talked about was how, like the ages for it, and it's recommended that it's for 14 and older. So those are who it's recommended that they start using. And then we talked about the design that's gonna go on the fit court. So there's 3 different quotes that we can look at. The first one is gonna be at 0 additional cost to us, and that's gonna be one of the more general, basic designs with that Priority Health logo. And there's a couple different things that we can customize, but it's really mostly that same, it's gonna be a similar design, and it's already set up. The next one that we can look at is the studio art. That's an additional 10,000. This gives us the ability to choose an artist or a collage. We could work with a local photographer. It would just be totally up to us, and then we would work with the fitness court people to have that digitized. So they recommended, they said in other communities, sometimes they'll have photographers put together, a montage or kind of a collage of different pictures in the community. We could do sports pictures of different things at Bicentennial. So we have some options with that. And then the third one is the additional 25,000, and that is to have the local artist. It's kind of like so the Fit Court handles this versus with the studio design, we would be, seeking out an artist or seeking out a photographer that we want to use. If we go with this option, they handle everything. So they kind of set up almost like a competition that they reach out to, and everyone, local artists are able to submit for it. And this would go across the entire back and then wrap around in the front of the Fit Court. And it will incorporate the artist's bio on the side panel. And it also provides a 5K grant for the chosen artist. And the design team would work directly with the artist that is chosen to set up. It's a 32-foot mural wall, and they would work with them to digitize the art and everything. So, not to say you can't have an artist in the studio design for just that 10K, but you're not going to have that 5K grant, and it's going to be more in-house. Like we would just be able to reach out to the artist or photographer, whoever we want to use. So those are the 3 options we're looking at.
Let me see if I can summarize. I actually talked with Sonia several times about this, but so basically the 25,000 is they hold a contest for local artists to compete to get their painting or their drawing on this thing. They give out $5,000 to the person that wins it. They put it on there, they laminate it, so it's not going to be able to be vandalized, what have you. The $10,000 is where we can pick the artist, or we can choose photos to have on there, and it's also made so that it's vandal proof. The idea of having that wall for the art, the reason why I like that is it also allows for a place for sponsors and patrons to actually have a place for their name. And I think that we're going to get some sponsors to help pay for building the whole thing overall. And if there's really no place to display their name, it's going to be tough to get sponsors.
So the sponsor wall is going to be the part that's going to say Priority Health. That will be there regardless, except if we do the artist one, that's going to be the wraparound. There's still going to be Priority Health, but it would be, they're going to be more careful with like the design of the artist.
Right.
But with the other one, the studio design, it's just a very small section that'll have the Priority Health, and then it'll be whatever image we decide. And then on the inside, they're going to have one section of the wall. So the inside, I'm talking about where all of the equipment is. You're going to have a little section that'll have like the Grand Blanc Township logo, so a little section dedicated to us, and then another section. The middle section is kind of like the description of all of the equipment, the app, and things like that. And then there's a donor wall, and that's where we'd be able to put all of the logos.
Right.
So regardless of what you decide to do, we will still have the donor wall where we can put all of the sponsors.
Right.
Mr. Supervisor, were you suggesting option 3 then? Is that what?
Originally, but I think we can do it ourselves for the middle one, the $10,000 as opposed to the 25,000, and I think we can make it look even better. So, and we have more control over who actually is going to be on there as far as artists or pictures. Mr. Kilmer?
Is it possible for us to sell this space to,
Well, we'll make it as a sponsorship. I don't know that we want to sell it to them permanently, but as a sponsorship,
because I know stadiums,
Yeah.
whatever, now they have,
naming rights and that kind of thing.
yeah,
Well, Priority Health is paying, $40,000 to be on this thing already. But in addition to that, we can have other donors and sponsors, whether it's families or foundations or corporations, whoever, individuals that want to put their name on there. But it's similar to selling it, but you get your name put on there as a donor and get recognized by anybody that comes out there.
How much is that
The middle one,
for the put your name on there?
The donor, like
we'd
set-
control that.
Yeah.
Oh, we haven't decided yet.
No. So when we start to seek out sponsors, then we can set the pricing for, how we want them to be displayed. If we're going to find someone who is, a bigger donor, their logo can be even bigger. So we can customize that.
So gold, silver, bronze, that kind of thing. You want your name in gold in the largest print, then that's $5,000 or whatever, but
All right.
I don't think
Throw in
we've
a
gotten to that
platinum
point.
too.
What's that?
Let's throw in a platinum too.
Okay, all right.
Is a motion in order, Mr. Supervisor?
It is, but I would go with the middle one, the $10,000.
Okay.
What is that called, Sonia?
The studio design.
Studio design?
Okay, then motion by myself.
Support.
And,
Supported by
okay,
Ms. Hugo.
supported by Hugo. Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee Raritan.
Yes, and that's the provision that it's the middle
Right,
option.
middle one.
That'll be in the resolution, in the motion? Okay, 10,000, all right, 10.
Just call it the studio. What is it?
Studio, okay. Very good. Treasurer Kilmer.
yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes,
6-0, motion passes.
thank you. It'll be a great addition to the park.
I got a question after the fact.
What's that?
For Senya, I'm having a hard time visualizing.
She'll show you some pictures afterwards. Do you have those pictures with you, Sonia?
Okay, all right.
Maybe you
Thank
should
you.
pass them along here and
Thank you.
helps you see it a little bit better. Okay, we'll continue moving on.
Okay,
We'll jump back to it if
Item 7G.
questions after looking at the photos. Item G, the board will consider Resolution 2310 consenting to the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs assurances in a grant application for an updated AV system at the senior center.
Good evening.
Okay, good evening, Ms. Roberts.
This is simply a resolution to apply for the grant. They require certain
Resolution.
assurances. That was the word I was
Okay.
looking for, assurances, and we put it in a resolution format. This is a grant that the city manager of Grand Blanc is writing for us. We own the senior center jointly, and so if we receive the grant, then they will pay for 50% of it. The city will pay for 25%, and the township will pay for another 25%. The bid that's in your packet, we did add one other item to that, so it'll be just a little bit more. It's called a click share, and what it does is allow someone to take their laptop or their, iPad or phone and put it up on the screen. So, let's say they were showing a movie at the senior center or something like that, then they
For the
would,
benefit of the public, can you just kind of run through quickly what you're including in that bid?
absolutely.
And also, I think recently, the city and the township agreed to paint the main room. Is that correct, Mr. Lehman?
Currently being painted as we speak.
Okay.
I'm just trying to,
We're trying to update the senior center a little bit. Most people don't realize the township residents pay about $1.4 million in taxes for senior millage to the county. We've asked the county for a little bit more assistance because we went from $160,000 a year that we received to run the senior center to what, 190 roughly, Mr. Lemata?
Yeah.
Past couple of years, but it's far short of the 1.2 million. It's about 10% of that.
That's just from Grand Blanc Townships when you add in what the city pays as well. And to what we provide the county for senior services millage, and the amount that we get back at $193,000 annually for paying in $1.5 million, it seems like we could run a pretty amazing senior center if we were just keeping that millage in-house. But of course, they provide other senior services through other service providers, through meals programs, ride programs, things like that with some of those funds.
And we have spoken with our county commissioners, both of them, about that we'd like to see a little bit more of that money coming back to the township for senior services. Go ahead, Ms. Roberts.
So this is going to include a new projector, a new screen, a new Blu-ray player, a Bluetooth receiver.
Sound system.
Yep, and the output from the Blu-ray player will feed the projector. It's going to include an HDMI wall plate that will connect to the projector as well, and then the click share.
So upgrading the technology to today's
Absolutely.
standards.
What they have in there is very old.
Dated, yeah.
Very old, and I don't even think it functions.
And the total cost is less than 6,000, right? For us.
For us, it will actually be a little bit more than that, up to about 8,000 for our share, with this click share that's being added.
Okay.
And you said you're getting a grant?
Wendy is, the city manager of Grand Blanc, is writing a grant, so we're hoping to get that grant for half of them.
And it's good. I mean, we're going to get it.
I spoke with one of the people that make the decision on that grant, actually with the city council or city manager, and that person said this is definitely something eligible for their funding.
So can we make our vote contingent on us getting the grant?
I think we need to do it regardless, but
What you're just doing the resolution
Right.
with the assurances, you're not even agreeing to a financial amount, right?
Okay, I got you.
okay. Making the motion, Ms. Hugo,
Motion by Hugo,
support by Dr. Reardon.
support by Raridan. Very good. Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Item H, you're staying there.
I'm going to hang out for a little bit.
Okay. The board will consider Resolution 2311, supporting the application of a Michigan Recreation Passport grant for accessible parking and parking lot stabilization at Bicentennial Park.
So you will recall that we applied for the Spark grant for the parking lot. We are going to apply again for round 2. We did not get it in round 1, but we're hoping to get it in round 2 to offset some of the costs that the township is responsible for in that parking lot reconstruction. We are applying for a recreation passport grant, and the grant that we're applying for is $100,000. The resolution is basically allowing us to apply for that grant.
Any questions, concerns? I'll make that motion. Support by Dr. Reardon.
7H, motion by Bennett, supported by Raridan. Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
I wondered if the board could indulge me for just a moment. Mr. Sears, would you be able to comment briefly on progress we've made on lighting for Saginaw Street for just a second, because I know. And maybe also if you could comment on a couple of the other questions.
Sure. So I actually just talked to Consumers Energy today about the lighting on Dort Highway, and we're still going through some design options on the poles themselves. Basically, what we have to figure out is what we want the poles to look like, and how does that weigh compared to what they have available and what's special order. Like everything else in the world, you hear me say this pretty much every meeting, is it seems like everything we try and buy is on back order right now. So we have some design options that I'll bring to Supervisor Bennett and Dennis, so that hopefully we can make a decision and get the design of that system moving forward. I'm hopeful that we can see construction on this street lighting system this summer. I'm not going to guarantee that because consumers just have a lot of work that they're doing right now. but they haven't said no yet, so that's possible.
Just to clarify, you've been working with them. You
Absolutely,
spoke
yeah.
with them again today.
Correct. I have been working for a very long time, actually, to get this project up and moving, and now it seems like we have some momentum. At the same time, I started talking to them about street lighting on Saginaw Street between Hill and Maple, and also the Point area. And hopefully we can get that rolling too and get a kind of a head start on it while we're fresh in their minds.
Very good. Anything, I mean, a turn lane, that's a long-term thing, and that would.
Yeah, and I did speak with somebody from the road commission about it a couple weeks ago, after the last board meeting, actually. They kind of brushed me off a little bit about it, but it's definitely something that I can keep bugging them on. Dirt highway is a state highway, so making any kind of improvements on that is kind of like moving heaven on earth unless MDOT has a construction project they're planning for that stretch of Dirt highway, which happens to be the better portion of roadway right now of Dirt highway. That doesn't mean that we can't accomplish it. We can start mentioning it to them that there needs to be some type of traffic study or improvement there.
A sinkhole right there would be good.
Right, if you can find a way to develop that, maybe it'll work out for us.
But quit televising the sewer over there.
Yeah, right, I don't want to do that, no.
All right.
Sure,
Okay, thank you.
yep, thank you.
Maybe, Mr. Lima, I don't know if you're going to comment on the campus plan or not in your report, but maybe, so. Okay, future agenda items, anything that anybody wants to make sure that we've got the schedule. Ms. Roberts emailed that out to everybody. I don't have it right in front of me, but everybody has a schedule as to what we're talking about each month on our strategic plan. You probably know what's on for next month. You took up all the meeting tonight already. All right, good. We'll have DPW on for next board meeting for our strategic plan update. With that, Ms. Hugo, anything with regard to Planning Commission?
Our April 6th meeting has been canceled, and our next meeting is May 4th.
Okay. Mr. White is not here this evening. Mr. Fike, anything with Metro Alliance?
Report.
Dr. Reardon, anything with police? Mr. Kilmer?
Yes, we had a phone conversation the other day with Michael Berry, thank you. And really, we just kind of wanted to find out, because of the news lately with the banks out in California that have gone under and whatever, basically, if we were in a decent place with our own investments. And pretty much, Mr. Berry felt that we were, that we're with a good medium-sized bank. And I forgot what I was saying.
That's all right. So we did have Mr. Berry come in and speak with, Mr. Berry is with PFM
Right.
and basically manages our portfolio for investments, but we asked him where he thought we were. We also, besides having quite a bit in investments, from our day-to-day operations, we also have money in the bank, right? We're depositing money monthly and we're paying money out monthly, but we do have what would be considered a money market with PFM kind of thing, as well as, our longer-term investments. But he did give us some reassurance, I think, some words that we all appreciated hearing. I think, Mr. Lima, what is the date do you know the date that we're having, we don't need the date, but Mr. Berry is coming in to address the board personally here in the.
So it's going to be in May. It was going to be originally in April, but we pushed it back because it's also the Michigan Townships Association Educational Conference. And we thought we wanted the full board here if
Right.
he was going to be in attendance.
Okay, so Mr. Berry will actually be here for one of our meetings to talk about the investments, where we're at, how things have been looking over the past year. And actually, I think that we made a wise move when we moved our investments to them a year or two ago, or a couple of years ago.
The other thing is that we're prohibited by law from investing in much except government securities.
Right.
So unless the government goes broke, we're pretty well,
Right. knock on wood.
Yeah.
Okay. With that, thank you, Clerk Robertson.
Nothing to report, sir.
Okay. All I can say is with regard to the clerk responsibilities, I was at a Michigan Township Association meeting last week for Genesee County chapter, and I have to say that I knew that the proposal that passed regarding changing the voting laws was quite sweeping, but I didn't realize how sweeping it is until I attended that meeting. And I couldn't believe, in fact, at 9 o'clock at night, I'm texting Superintendent Limata and Ms. Henry, even
Yes,
Kirk Robertson,
it is.
saying, I can't believe that we've got to do all of this, and it's going to actually cause a lot of movement in this building even, just, one thing
accommodate.
is just 9 days of early voting. So for 9 days, this room is going to be a voting, I assume this room is going to be.
Yes, this will be this
We
room.
have to have 3 drop boxes around the township with cameras on them. The list is immense, and I know that we're going to definitely be relying on our clerk and our deputy clerk and their help to get through this, and I'm confident that, Dennis, leading the staff here, what have you, we're going to get through it, but.
It was the proposal to and the implementation thereof was the major topic of discussion at the Michigan Association of Municipal Clerks Conference, which took place last week and is continuing this week. The implementation the implementation bills are currently being worked on in the legislature. They've not been completed yet. We obviously have the language of Proposal 2 that's passed, that's now in the Constitution guidance, but there will need to be bills introduced and passed to implement it still further. And I want to thank the Mr. Supervisor and Mr. Limita for the attention that they've already given to this matter, and I will be coming to the board with requests for expenditures for those boxes and for the cameras and so on. But I believe a significant amount is going to be reimbursed from the state.
Yes.
And so that's a good thing, but it will require decisions by this board.
Well, and it's going to cause some confusion, I think, too.
Well, we're going to do everything we can to eliminate that confusion, Mr. Supervisor. We're going to
I
do everything we
appreciate
can to
that.
put the word out so that everybody, we want everybody who wants to vote can vote, and we want to make it as convenient and as possible, and be fully in compliance with the law.
Right. And we may even want to have a board update at some point on all the changes. I know, as Clerk Robertson stated, there's many things that still have to be decided in the legislature. I mean, from what I understand, the proposal was kind of a skeleton kind of thing, and now the rest of the pieces have to all be filled in.
And we have to put some meat on those bones.
Right, and so until we know that, and I mean, there's some confusion too, because there's some conflicts between things we have going on here at the township by law and what have you. Mr. Fike?
So for this November,
Well, no, we don't know. No, that it wouldn't be for November. What the state is saying is that they would like to have this in place in time for the presidential primary. Okay?
which is,
Which
They
is
haven't
next,
decided.
early next, yeah, even that date is
That's
not
up
specifically
in the air.
certain. I mean, the Constitution indicates that it needs to be in place at the present moment, but even the Secretary of State has acknowledged the fact that without the implementation legislation, we're hamstrung in terms of how to proceed. So that's literally being worked on as we speak in the legislature, and we're going to implement it once we have that language. And the association is intimately involved in the draft, in providing testimony to the legislature on what that language should be.
next year.
Yes.
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 So there's lots of other legislative things happening, but that's probably the one that I paid most attention to. Two other brief things. I'm not sure if Mr. Lehman is going to comment on beautification efforts, but we had a meeting today with Point North, which is the business district here in the north part, and talked a little bit about the beautification efforts that we've been able to put together. You probably saw in your email that the grant that Ms. Roberts, Mr. Limita requested from the Community Foundation of Grand Blanc. Actually, we won that award. I think it's close to $10,000. Includes planters that are going to be placed along Saginaw Street between Maple Road and Hill Road, about 12 of them, I think. And they're fairly large. They're like 34 inches, something like that, 500 pounds apiece. Nobody will be able to pick them up, I don't think, unless they have a whole group of people. But it will, be the start of some efforts along here. As Mr. Sears mentioned, the lighting is coming together in this north part. A number of things. We had Ms. Bayman to talk a little about the putting together a pattern book for looking at what types of things we would do a revolving loan fund for. So lots of positive energy happening here in the Point North and with the beautification effort. We're going to be meeting in April. What the date escapes me, Ms. Roberts, for April 11th. So April 11th at what time? 5:30. Yes, it was. April 11th at 5:30, we're going to have a meeting here for anybody interested in helping us with our beautification efforts. We have a number of organizations that have volunteered, but we're looking for more. So if anybody has an organization that you'd like to join up and help us, we're going to pick some key intersections and overpasses to target for our beautification efforts, as well as entrances in the township. The topic that continues to fester is the 911 consortium. I don't know if everybody saw the email that we received late this afternoon from Attorney Layton's office. I'm kind of confused by it. The letter states that as corporate counsel for the Genesee County Board of Commissioners, so basically it means that the attorney for the county commission is the prosecutor, correct? As attorney for the county Board of Commissioners, he says that the county is not responsible for Genesee County 911, that it's a separate organization and it has its own attorney, what have you, which we are aware that they have their own attorney who advised them not to do what they're doing. However, just to make a long story short, our concern with 911 is that the state law states that they will dispatch the closest available ambulance. It also is the local policy that will be the case. In the last year and a half, there was a vote by a minority of the consortium, minority group, so basically 12 out of the 31 members, but they were the majority at the meeting, voted to allow municipalities to choose who their provider would be for EMS service and for 911 to dispatch ambulances to just those companies in those communities. So they're not dispatching the closest ambulance, they're dispatching whoever has the contract in that community. So anyways, the county was sued for something similarly several years ago. The judgment against the county was for $20 million. They lost. And the judgment was against the county in addition to 911. But this response that we received today said that the county isn't responsible for 911. But my confusion is that the previous court order actually named Genesee County as the, what would you call it, the term for it? Responsible party, and that they were to pay $20 million. So I'm not sure if they were wrong back during that lawsuit or how that is different today, but yes.
Did I read this? Did I read it correct that the prosecutor wasn't going to enforce any law on this?
Basically, he said it isn't the county's responsibility, I guess. Is that?
They don't have legal standing, according to the prosecutor's office attorney who responded, that they have no legal standing to enforce
a criminal law.
It's basically a 911 Act requirement that they disclose, that they dispatch the closest available unit, and the county is municipal council, basically, or corporate council is saying that they don't have a standing in there to enforce that That's totally up to the 911 consortium or the Genesee County Medical Control. Both are standalone governmental entities.
Clerk Robertson?
Yeah, I don't, I know we wanted to have, I appreciate the discussion this evening. I don't know how deeply we want to get into this, but without necessarily going into closed session, which may be necessary. But we have a situation here where the county is not taking responsibility for the Genesee County 911. And they're saying it's not ours, to concern themselves with. Well, I don't accept that answer. It seems unfathomable to me that they are not responsible in light of the fact that the law is clear, that 911 is acting over the objections of their own counsel, based upon the law and based upon precedents that were established in cases that came out of this county. It just seems preposterous on its face to me. Now, granted, I'm not a lawyer, okay, but I did spend a little bit of time writing law, so I'd like to think I know a little bit about this. And we all bring to our work here in the township our own background, as far as that's one of the strengths of local government and service, is that we all bring our life experiences with us when we take the oath here. And my attitude is that I think we need to have a further conversation with our own legal counsel about where we proceed, how we proceed from here on the basis of this.
Well, as far as legality, we don't have to be an attorney to know that it's not happening, the process is not legal. I mean, we've had attorney after attorney give us opinions that it's totally illegal, including
Their own.
including
Their
their
own,
attorney.
yes.
In fact, Mr. Lehman has pointed out numerous times in their minutes, even from the organization, from 911, that their own attorney says that he can't eliminate the liability, that they will be sued, and it's just a matter of limiting their liability. We're aware of several cases already, one in particular where an individual passed away because the closest ambulance was not called, and it took over half an hour for the ambulance to get to that person. That didn't occur in Grand Blanc Township. We're not aware of any situations here like that, but there was an EMS unit 5 minutes away.
I was going to say, in that case, there was one less than 5 minutes
Yes.
away, and they wouldn't dispatch it.
Correct.
And so my understanding is that I thought it was at least a misdemeanor to not dispatch. And
Yeah.
if that's the case, I don't understand why a prosecutor doesn't think it's their responsibility. But
And just
you know,
for the public's information, though, if I may, the reason why we're so concerned about this too is that how the 911 consortium is funded is by all the participating municipalities in Genesee County. Currently, there's a surcharge in everybody's phone bill, but if that isn't able to provide enough funding for any lawsuits or there's financial constraints on the 911, it goes back to the funding organizations, and it's based on population, taxable value. Well, guess who's at the top of that list? Grand Blanc Township. And so we would end up picking up a good portion of the cost. But I do believe we need to have some conversation in closed session. When I'm asked, I tell people that we are researching all of the possibilities. I know that some would like us to take legal action against the 911 consortium. I know we have board members and residents that would like us to form our own PSAP or 911, which is not unheard of. Many counties, many municipalities, especially in Oakland County and other counties, have their own. It's a matter of funding it and staffing it. Staffing, isn't something that's easy for any department or business or any entity right now. I don't care what business you're in, you're having trouble finding staff, but and the 911 of Genesee County is having trouble, but we can't use that as a reason not to do what's right. So I'm open to looking at all the options, and I think we have been. We've been looking at how do we convince people. We looked at the data. We FOIA'd and we ended up filing in court to get the response time data for the last 6 months while it was after these contracts went into place. And our data tells us that there has been very insignificant increases in response time in the communities that signed
You
agreements.
mean improvement, Mr. Supervisor?
Right. It's very insignificant. And actually, in some communities, it's gone the opposite way. So, our thoughts were if we were not going to be policy-driven or driven by law or state statute, at least maybe we could be driven by data. But that's not the case.
Well, let me, if I could,
Yes.
let me be clear. We want the response times to be improved, but frankly, even if they were showing some improvement, the law is still the law. And if you're breaking the law, you can't justify it, okay, the way that it's being argued. Legislators are not potted plants, and public acts are not suggestions. They're law. And, I think it's understandable to everybody on this board and everybody within the sound of my voice as to why I would take a strong position on this, given my history and my record of service.
And we did ask for an Attorney General's opinion this past year. The response, basically, in a nutshell, was that it's a local issue. And so kicked it back to the local, and
No, the local.
so therefore, we notified Prosecutor Layton's office, and we received the response today. We also, at the same time that we sent the letter to Prosecutor Layton, we sent it to the state EMS and the control authority, and we have not received a response yet from them. Yes.
We have been discussing, I think it was last March, we had a conversation on just this. We wanted to give them an opportunity, and so far, movement has always been in the wrong direction, at least from my perspective on this. At some point, I think we should consider, at least, and I would be in favor of putting them on notice that we're going to withdraw, because I don't think it's fair to our taxpayers to shoulder the burden on something that's clearly illegal.
Well,
I have that concern. We've made difficult choices over the past several years with other partnerships that we were in due to liability issues, and it's unfortunate, but we've tried to convince the 911 consortium of our concern, and we're not seeming to get anywhere.
And this is liability on steroids.
you know it.
I have breaking news.
Yes.
Grand Blanc wins 64-44.
Okay.
Wow. Very good.
Okay. So that was worth injecting into.
Sorry,
That's okay.
We were on a roll there, but
Goodrich lost by 4.
Oh, did they?
They did.
That's too bad. Well, if you would like to have a closed session briefly to discuss this, we can entertain that after we get through Mr. Limata. So that's all I have. So we'll turn it over to Mr. Limata at this point, and then think about whether or not we want to have a brief closed session to discuss our next steps with 911.
Just a couple of brief things. Campus plan programs, obviously in 2 weeks, you'll hear the update for the fire department and new DPW facility. Mr. Sears will be bringing you some more information, but we continue to make steady progress there on finalizing the final plans. In addition, the property that we made the offer for on Dort Highway to complete, or square off another piece of our campus plan. I did send a communication out just to let you guys know. Phase 1 environmental assessment came back. I don't have a great deal of concern, but enough that I ordered the Phase 2 trial or Phase 2 study to move forward. The Phase 2 study will take a look. They'll do 8 borings. In fact, I think they were out there yesterday or today. Today doing the borings. I'll send them to the lab. I'll have the full report no later than March 28th. We scheduled the close for the 31st. The reason I wanted the Phase 2 assessment study done, as well as filing a BEA, the environmental assessment, is because if there were to be any cleanup found as a result of this, the seller will be responsible for that cleanup once we have done our due diligence and filed the BEA and got the Phase 2 study results. So we'll be happy to close. Like I said, I saw enough to concern me to move forward with a Phase 2, but not so much that I believe that we would walk away from the property. We just didn't want to get slapped with the cost of any cleanup. That will remain with the sellers because of our actions. And I think that's an important point. The audit continues for our annual financial audit. Representatives from Plant Moran are here. They've been here for a couple of weeks. They'll be here for another week or so to wrap up. Obviously, from our perspective, we cooperate and get along very well with the audit team, but it is a tremendous amount of work on everybody's part in the organization, but especially Finance Director Kathy Sostak and her team. They work a lot of long days and a lot of long hours pulling all that information together. So far, my conversations with both Kathy and with Dave Helisek from Plant Moran, we're seeing everything just like we would expect it to see. So I think that's going very, very well. The clerk's office, we talked a little bit about Proposal 2 and the impacts that it has on us. One of those is the minimum of 9 days of early voting for at least 8 hours each day. That has led to quite a bit of concerns, the security of ballots, that kind of thing. As much as we tried to reorganize this building several times over the last few years, the advent of bringing on the fire department and Parks and Recreation from those joint ventures, we're busting at the seams, folks, and it's still 2 years away before we see the DPW and fire moving out. But the 2024 election year will have the impacts that we have to do something about for the clerk's department. Quite frankly, they need more space to pull off what they're going to do. We brought our administrative team together. We met twice so far, yesterday for about 2 hours to look at and review all of the possibilities. We walked through the police department and looked at the available space over there in case we needed to shift somebody else over to the police department to gain some space here. We had a lot of great ideas come out yesterday. We'll go through and we'll vet all of those to try to come up with a final plan. But I can assure you we're working in it. I sent some of those along to Clerk Robertson's deputy, Lynn Henry, so she can get a look at some of our suggestions. She will be here tomorrow. I'll review those with her at that time. But I assure you, we will be prepared to meet the challenge in 2024, no matter what that looks like. We may lose some storage space. We may move some offices around. But our goal and what I challenged my administrative team with was the least amount of disruption for the lowest cost. We know we won't be in this building forever. We're trying to make it work, and by God, we will make it work for 2024, but it probably is going to result in some type of capital investment in shifting some more office space and moving some people around, quite frankly, to pull it off. And while I'm talking about the clerk, I just want to give a shout out to Clerk Robertson, who finalized his 3-year Michigan Municipal Clerks certification program last week. And I saw his smiling face with his certification award, and I think we all should be very, very proud of Clerk Robertson's efforts in achieving that.
Thank you very much. It's a rigorous program, and it was a full week from each of the last 3 years. We had a full week. We start on a Sunday evening and we finish on a Friday afternoon. So and one of the days is a long, like 12-hour day. So it's associated with Central Michigan University, and it takes 2 weeks for us to do it statewide because obviously municipal governments have different board meetings at different times, and it's intended to accommodate municipal clerks from all over the state of Michigan, village, city, and township clerks. And so my week was last week. We are fortunate in another way because Lynn is not only my deputy, but she is now on the board of directors. You'll remember I mentioned that when she was appointed to that position. That's of an enormous benefit to my office and to this township and to the people of this township, because she's in the heart of the planning and execution of not only implementing things like Proposal 2, but educating everybody else in the state about Proposal 2. So that's a real asset to us.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So thank you very much for the kind words.
Excellent, significant accomplishment. So thank you. And finally, if you guys want to go into the closed session, you do have an attorney-client privileged communication that I forwarded from Chris Patterson, your attorney from Fahey Schultz. So you would have the ability to go into a closed session to discuss the information that you received from Attorney Patterson. if you're inclined to go there, if that's what the purpose of your discussion for 911 is.
What's the thoughts of the board?
Well, part of my concern is David's not here.
Well, Chris
he's not-
Patterson is,
He's not our attorney for this purpose.
Oh, so we don't have any real legal,
we have the letter that, from Chris. I would say let's go into closed session. I would like to go into closed session to discuss written attorney opinion.
Right.
You support? Dr. Reardon?
Motion to go into closed session at 8:41 PM. 41 PM. Motion by Raridan and supported by myself or Supervisor Bennett, whichever. Robertson. Okay. Then we will go into closed session at 8:41.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay.
Right.
Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening.